Hi, my name is Eric Schaefer, and today we're going to look at advanced task allocation capabilities within K2. K2 ships with a number of task allocation smart objects, which allow for performance-based and load balancing task allocation capabilities when you're working with K2 processes. These are broken down into two main categories. You have the K2 role methods, which work on K2 roles, and the Active Directory methods, which work against Active Directory. For the K2 role methods, there's a number of different methods that you can use against a K2 role. You can get a user in a role who has the least number of task items, get a user in a role with the most number of task items. This allows you to do some balancing of work within that role. You can use the round robin capability to have it go to one user after another every time that role is used within a destination rule, so that you're, again, cycling around between the users. You can also use some of the methods that rely on the reporting information to determine how fast or slow a user actions their tasks and be able to get a particular user from a role that has the smallest average task duration or the largest average task duration. There's also a capability to say, given a role and a particular user in that role, give me the rest of the users from that role for kind of a peer review type scenario. The Active Directory methods are fairly straightforward. There's two there. The get manager, which will take a user and get that user's manager out of Active Directory, and then the opposite, where you take a manager and it gives you the list of direct reports, which you can use in a destination rule. That's good for things like performance review type processes. Here's a quick screenshot of the smart objects within the Smart Object Tester tool and the methods. You can go and use this tool to obviously check to see how these methods would work before actually using them within the context of a process. For the demo today, we're going to take a look at a simple little process, mostly just a testing process for looking at three of the role methods: the round robin, the fastest user, and the least work options. So we'll go into the process, we'll look at configuring each one of those destination rules, and then we'll run through it at runtime to see how those behave. Jumping into K2 Studio now, we see the process. The one thing that we're going to have to look at first before we look at configuring these destination rules is, because each one of these, round robin, fastest user, and least work, are based on K2 roles, we need to actually have a role to work with. I've gone ahead in the K2 workspace and created a new role by going to the roles section, right-clicking and adding a new role, calling it approvers, and adding 3 users from my Active Directory environment. So I have Anthony, Cody, and Holly added to this approvers role, and we'll use this role when we configure these destination rules in the process. Jumping back to K2 Studio, let's take a look at, first we'll take a look at the round robin example. So we'll just go into the destination rule for the round robin activity. It's pre-configured it, but let me just go ahead and do it again here. So what we need to do is, because this is a smart object, we need to go to our environment library, drill through our smart object server, find the task allocation category, and under task allocation role methods will be our methods that we were looking at in the PowerPoint. So we'll use the get round robin user and just drag the username of the return parameter onto the canvas. This will ask us for some input mappings because we need to supply which role we want to have this work against, and I can just go ahead and put in the name of my role. Now at runtime, it's going to go ahead and use that role, figure out who the next user is based upon some historical information, and then return me a username, which will then be used as part of the destination rule. So you can see there, it's calling that round robin, get round robin user, and returning the username. And that's all we need to do there. Let's go and take a look at how we would configure the fastest user. Similar vein, we'll jump into the destination users, clear out that one, go into our environment library, drill down through our smart objects to the task allocation smart objects again. And in this particular case, we're doing the fastest user. So let's go ahead and grab the fastest user's username. In this particular case, we have a couple of input properties to set. The first one is just like the round robin. We need to set the name of the role, so we're going to use the approvers. We could optionally go into our context browser, go into our roles, and just drag approvers across as well. If you want to, make sure that you're not relying on typing it correctly. The minimum and maximum time to give you an ability to specify what your range is. Just going to put in some values here. Click Next. Again, the username is returned. Click Finish and Finish. And that is configuring the fastest user. And finally, let's go and configure least work. At this point, you should be getting the idea. It's basically just going to that smart object and passing in some input parameters. So we'll go into our role methods and get the least work, drag that user on, and specify the role. Next, finish, and our process is configured. I've already pre-deployed this process, and we'll just go ahead and kick an instance off of this and run through it a couple times. So I'm just going to go back to the workspace, go to my test project, advanced task allocation section, go to instances. Because this is just a test process, I'm going to kick off my instance from the workspace here. So I'll just click Start New, give it a specific name, and start that instance. Now that that instance is started, it's going to assign an initial task to the administrator to make a decision about what type of allocation we want to do. So we can select round robin, fastest user, least work, or potentially cancel. So jumping in to the portal as the administrator, we'll refresh the administrator's work list. We'll see the advanced task allocation test scenario. We'll go ahead and action the round robin option. So taking that action will then send us through. Let's open up the view flow as well. So if we go into round robin, we should see that it's assigned it, in this particular case, to Cody. So we'll go in as Cody, refresh Cody's work list. So we'll see we're logged in as Cody. We can go ahead and say that we're going to complete this task. That's going to send it back to the process administrator. And if we action this to round robin one more time, go back to the view flow, we'll see that now it's been assigned to Anthony. And if we jump back, we can see it was originally assigned to Cody. She completed her task. This next time around, it's assigned to Anthony. So if we open Anthony's work list, refresh, we'll see we have that task, and we can once again, as Anthony this time, complete that task. If we continue to cycle it around, it would assign to Holly, then back to Cody, back to Anthony, and so on. Let's go back in as the administrator and select a different option. This time let's go ahead and send it for the fastest user. This is going to use historical reporting information about how people have completed tasks in this role previously, and will assign the task to that user. So the fastest user for all tasks previous has been Holly. So Holly's been assigned the task. So we can go in as Holly, refresh the work item, go ahead and take an action to complete this. And send it back to the administrator. Finally, we can take the least work example. This is fairly easy to see. If we go to Holly, Holly has a number of task items available to her. Cody has 3 task items available to her. Anthony has 2 task items associated to him, so he should be the one that gets the task. And if we refresh, we'll see that that task is now then assigned to Anthony. Just looking at the totals in terms of task count and then assigning that task. In summary, you've seen very briefly how the task allocation smart objects can provide performance-based and load balancing task assignment capabilities for K2 processes.